uh, talk about religion and how it has actually impacted education in Nigeria. The religious angle is not from a spiritual point of view, or neither is it just focused on Christianity. We would try and see if we can align it with overarching religion, how it all came about, and how it's actually pushing the values that we need. Normally we would wait for a few people to join in, but I think it's fair if we just keep the conversation going because it's value driven. So it doesn't matter, and the whole thing is timeless. So anybody can consume it later if they want. We indicated that he would set the tone for us today. So if you're okay with that, we're all ears. So.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be back. I've missed you guys. I've not been here for 2 weeks now.
Okay.
So, and I've picked a very thought-provoking subject today, which is religion, and I know it's going to rouse so many people's attention. But again, let's provoke the debate. So, we're talking about the impact of religion on the educational system in Nigeria. And I was thinking maybe the first thing for us to do is create that preamble to say, how did this all come about? It started with colonization. When the British came in, brought colonization to Nigeria to colonize us, religion was one of the things they used. And in the process of doing that, the African religion or religious system was taken away. And consequently, in school curriculum, it's played a major role as well. So I went to school in Nigeria. I never learned anything about African traditional beliefs. All we did was through history, but it was not a subject on its own per se. And you go to northern Nigeria, they were focused on Islamic studies, which later became a way of life. And everybody now talks about the Almajiris in northern Nigeria. I think that's a debate for another day as well. Then in southern Nigeria, we focused on, it was called Bible studies, or BK, wasn't it? Was it Bible, or whatever it was called? I can't remember now, but I know it was called
Bible
BK.
knowledge.
Bible knowledge, and it was mostly focused on just the Bible, the teaching. And when you look at religion itself shouldn't be controversial. It should be able to give us, the idea of religion is to give us those values that we need to navigate ourselves through life. And now, looking back in Nigeria, it's now become a way of life for us. We saw a video recently of a pastor. Again, that would be a debate for another day, insulting someone from the pulpit. What the problem I have with this is we should go back again and introduce the African traditional values as part of religion, because that's just been thrown away. It's just been put aside, and we've completely forgotten that we are a people. We believe in something. Our history does not start from the day the white man entered into our country and brought their religion with them. As part of a way of, I'm sorry to say, it's part of a way of brainwashing us, because as I said before we started this program, we had our own values, and where are those values as well? Before I round up, I'll conclude by saying religion itself, reiterating the point I made earlier, is not a bad thing. It's the way society projects religion. It's become a way of life for us. Again, it shouldn't be a bad thing, but we should always have our thinking caps to be able to ask questions about what does this mean? Because what has happened is that religion has occupied that lacuna that has been vacated by politicians.
Thanks for that, Louis. The impact of religion, I believe, is a bit historical. And obviously, David, you being a student of history, it's a good thing we're actually talking about this, because the historical point of view is really key. When we decided to do this, I had spoken to a priest and I'd spoken to another religious person, and he told me that everything has to start from the beginning. If we have to measure the impact, or if we have to highlight where we think this is really impacting us, this is the pros and the cons now. Not just not just from a spiritual point of view or from a Christian point of view. It's actually the pros and cons of religion. So I don't know if it's okay, David. I know if you want to give us like how from history, the impact has been building up and how that is affecting us, with regards to where we are now.
Well, religion has always impacted on education. If you go back even into the 1800s, even the creation of the Roman Catholic Church, what they've done in religion, they've trained people into ordination. The Anglican Church do the same. I went to a Motan primary school in Benin, and I know that the nursery school was taken care of by sisters. They used to call them, wasn't it? The ones, you know. So I know that they've always impacted on our religion. Sorry, on our education. Likewise, traditionally, we mustn't forget that tradition has also impacted on education. Because if you look back in history, using the Edo people as a case study, our empire was vast and it went all the way up to places like Mali. And we had to train our children in traditional values to keep them in check, you know. So I think the impact of religion has somewhat been positive on education. Recently, however, I'll be honest to say, I don't know what impact it really is having anymore, because all I can really see is religion being turned into a political tool.
Yeah.
You know, and it's impacted on the way people now view religion. You know, this is, I don't know what impact religion is actually having anymore, apart from being, and I'll be honest with this, apart from causing, would I say,
Chaos.
influencing our people in a different way that religion didn't do before. You know, I think it's of self-glory now rather than the purpose of religion. So if I may say, bastardization of religion, you know. So I think that's where we are in Nigeria at the moment. So don't get me wrong, some of the religious leaders try and impact as well positively. They have universities, they have schools, you know, but how much of an impact is that really when it's not free? You know, it should be free. This is what I think. Education should be free. I got education free, you know, in my time in Emotan. Ambrose Ali was governor of Edo State. Right. So if we think back to our youth, most of us, some of us here who are from Edo State, if you think back to your youth, you will realize that religion, yes, made an impact positively, you know, but these days, well, I'm not on ground, but I do know that with the videos I see, with the things I hear, with pastors insulting other people, you know, what's the way forward? We have to find a way forward and bring it back into the positive light.
Well, I think from what you got, obviously, thanks for that, David. Just for a few folks who have joined us, if this is your first time, feel free to use the chat. David just highlighted one key reason why we're here, to decipher the impact, you know, is what we would really like to do. The impact that is actually having on us in Nigeria, you know, if it's value driven or the pros and the cons. It's right that you said you don't know what impact is having, because we're struggling with that as well. You know, so maybe somebody else might understand or know better, or, you know, obviously Sandra's got more experience in this kind of thing, because I'm pretty certain you've worked with a lot of people, and you know for a fact how religion can impact a small community or huge community, and then every other person as well. If you have any value-driven point here, if you can use the chat function or just raise your hand. But Sandra, I don't know, is it possible? Do you have an indication of how we can measure that impact that religion is actually having, just so we know the pros and the cons, or highlight the value, amplify the value if we need to. Because it's getting to a point where we know for a fact that religion might be, like David said, it's currently being bastardized on a level.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I think for me, we need to go back to basics, which Uyi and David had done anyway, in terms of what is the role of religion in education, to even start with. What is the role? We talk about when we were colonized and they brought religion to us. The religion that was brought to us, in my view, in those days, is different to what we have now. We have now shaped it into our own culture and way of life, and it's completely different, because Christianity in Nigeria or Africa is demonstrated differently to other parts of the world, if we're being honest. And in this country, if you look at it, the way Christianity is practiced is completely different. So we need to kind of find out what the role of religion is in our education. It shouldn't have anything to do with our curriculum, other than you teach children about religion, i.e. specific religion and denomination. Other than that, it should be left out of everything else, in my view. And in the days when religion was brought to us and it impacted on education, impacted by building infrastructure, not, and teaching us values and morals. And all of those things we kind of lost along the way. Yes, we had morals and values and tradition and cultures and all those things way before colonization, and a lot of that obviously were disseminated. It's just gone, basically. But we don't have history books, and David might correct me. I don't think we have history books pre-colonization that children can draw on to say, how was it, before all of this happened 200, 400 years ago? How was it? What was religion like in what is now Nigeria? Because obviously it wasn't Nigeria at the time. So we need to kind of ask the historians among us to help us to unlock all of that knowledge. And it might be that maybe they're not written, they're not captured. So it's very difficult to draw on that, because if it's not written, because we're not used to writing things, we're just passing on through folklores and things like that. So again, that has its obviously downside, because now we're all thinking, what was it like? Nobody can remember, because all the people that were told have now gone, obviously. So going back to religion and education, it's had a huge impact, huge impact on us in Nigeria currently, and not positively, unfortunately, because we've kind of seen religion as a way of hitting someone on the head if they're not doing the right thing, in our view.
Right.
Whereas certain people have been elevated above, what is right and wrong, and therefore they can never do wrong. So we have I wouldn't even call it a two system religion. It's probably has different layers. We have different layers of religion that's clouding all of our judgments, all of our education, and we're just passing that on to the children. Because I remember education in my time when I was growing up is completely different. Religion didn't feature so strongly as much as I see now. The children, for example, I'll give you an example. You go into a hospital in the morning, they're praying in the morning to start the day. I'm like, for crying out loud, no. Why do we do that? You go into school and that's fine, pray in the morning, why not? But don't stop in the afternoon to pray, stop in the evening to pray. Stop. It's like, we've lost our ways. I don't know where to even start or end. We've lost our ways. It's having a huge impact on education. Religion is having a huge impact on education. and something has to give because we can't carry on like this. It's not positive.
You're right. You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right, Chandra. I mean, while we're still trying to decipher this, it would be good to hear different opinions because it seems that we're all struggling to identify what impact religion is really, really having. I made an example a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to a friend. I said, look, the advanced countries, let's put it that way. So you look at China, you look at places where technology is really, really, really kicking off. They don't seem to be very religious, but they seem to be very wealthy. So how do we balance that? Countries that are really, really poor seem to be very, very religious, right? Abel, I don't know if you have a value, a driven incentive that might say why religion is actually not necessarily relevant, but how is it actually impacting or giving value to our educational system in Nigeria, Abel?
Hi, it's my first time here.
Okay.
My name's Abel. I'm a good friend of David's. So, I mean, I can only talk from personal experience, really, to be honest. And going back to my days at Hamilton, when the original sisters were in charge of being at Hamilton, and they taught us the moral values, how we should behave and how we should, interact with others, and a good sense of discipline back in the day. And that was all good. And, it kind of stopped there because when you then went on to secondary school, I went to a federal school, which was in the north in Jos. Back then, there wasn't much interaction, as I would say, with religion in secondary school back then. We had the Muslims and we had the Christians. We interacted with each other. The Muslims did their Islamic knowledge. We did our BK, which was Bible knowledge. But at the end of the day, there wasn't much of an impact of religion on the education system back then. When you went to college or a secondary school. And I think that worked well within the dynamics of how Nigeria was at the time. Sort of going on what David, expanding on what David said, I was in Nigeria last year, and I went to the Holy Cross Church in Benin City, which was a church which I used to worship in when I was in Nigeria, and I left Nigeria in 1987. And I could see it really change. I mean, you went into the church, it was like you went into some church in Rome. It was quite extra, everything there was quite extra about, it was just very flash, it was very, very, they had about 5 different collections for one mass, and I don't know why. It was, it just baffled me, and I think this is where we've kind of lost our way of the whole religious thing. And outside Holy Cross there's a whole stream of beggars along there, and there's a church behind them, which I think, according to my mum, they spent over $5 million, 5 million naira to sort of touch up or bring up to scratch. And like, I'm thinking, at least some of that money that the church gets, they can use for those beggars along there, just sort of give them some kind of refuge or build some sort of sanctuary for them, and, you kind of get that sense of belonging, that maybe because, the way things are in Nigeria, the austerity and all things that are going on, you kind of think maybe people need some kind of salvation, and they've turned to the church for some kind of miracle to help in their lives, and I think going on from that, you kind of think, why is it that, people are looking for a quick win or a miracle, and then they turn to the church for that. And when I was in Nigeria, there wasn't that many Christians or, people that were going to church, but now there's a whole plethora of them, and they've abandoned the traditional values in favor of the church. And you kind of think, somewhere along the way, the message has been lost. The missionaries came to Nigeria in order to teach us values, good things, how to interact with each other, and, sort of like expand, just enable us to be good people within ourselves. But I think that message has been lost along the way. And the whole religious thing has just taken a whole different step. And I think, you know, religion itself needs to look a bit inward, refer to the Bible and think, you know, this is not what the Bible said we should be doing. This is not what, you know, this is not the way that God said we should do these kind of things. And, you know, and that's just my own opinion, really, to be honest.
Excellent, Abel. I totally, I mean, considering it's your first time on the call, and I hope we'll see more of you. The key thing is we want to unlock any kind of value that we think is missing or maybe is misaligned. Obviously, as you can imagine here, we're not bashing anybody. We're not bashing others or, you know, whatever, in as much as I would love to. But, you know, it's a situation where let's actually look at the value that the religion is having on our educational system in Nigeria. You know, if we move into Adonis now to say, hey, look, Mr. Adonis, from your point of view, is there any value that you can unlock? It could be pros, it could be cons. There might be some positive things in religion, you know, that we need to align with, right? Just like as you align with science, for instance, is align with logic and all that. Religion has its own values that if propelled properly, it might be valuable to the individual, but that I don't know. But Mr. Adonis, let's in case you might have one or two, so just give us an update from your point of view, if you don't mind. You know.
Good evening, guys. Yeah, thank you. Traditionally, I think if we're like the former speakers rightly said, let me say during the colonial days, the religion was kind of very positive in terms of impacting society. Because if you look at the schools that were set up, most of the schools that were set up in Nigeria in those days, they were mostly missionary school like CMS, Christ the Kids College. You know, they were the school that really impacted on the life of our, let me say, our fathers and likewise us. You know. Right. But over time, I think the way religion has been commercialized in Nigeria, I think I cannot imagine or cannot actually fathom out any positive impact it's having on the populace now, because it's like it has been bastardized, commercialized. Yep. If you listen recently to one Catholic father, I think the video went viral in a young Catholic father in Abuja. I forgot his name, where he was trying to castigate Nigerians about believing in prayers every time, you know, instead of them to go out and fight for themselves, you know, confront the government, they think manners will fall from heaven. That was a Catholic Reverend Father, you know, trying to educate Nigerians, you know, on the need to take their destiny in their hands, you know. And in terms of education, I wouldn't say that has any positive impact, because it's like it's a cash and carry thing. You look at the university we are talking about, the cheapest university, private university in Nigeria is about $1 million in a term, you know? And how many people can afford that, you know? And these churches are built with the pennies and the cover from the rice sellers, granite sellers, and they cannot afford the schools. And the drug dealers and the 419s, those are the people that send their children to the schools. So I don't see any positive impact. That is most of the churches, especially these new generation churches, Pentecostal churches. Right. The traditional churches like CMS, what you call it, Catholic and Anglican, I think they still try to hold on to their traditional values, though, as the last speaker rightly said, because people were now deviating, leaving the traditional churches, going to the new generation churches, because I saw them as living churches, you know. So the whole Catholic and Anglican try to modernize their way of worship in order to retain their membership. I think that is why you see some kind of you see some fingerprints of these new churches in the old traditional churches like Catholic, Anglican. You know, they try to now move towards the new generation churches because of the way they are taking members from them, you know, because most of them believe in miracles, and the way churches are being worshipped in Nigeria now is like the pastors and the bishops are the God they worship, not even, they're not worshiping God through the pastors. It's like they worship the pastors and the bishops are now the God they worship from the way for their utterances, you know. People can witness the recent viral video about Oyedipo and Pastor Ibiyomi, you know,
Well, if we avoid that for a bit, because I know that
Okay.
can spiral into some major scenarios.
Yeah.
The key is
So
that value that we're trying to unlock,
yeah.
like you said,
So
right?
if I have to summarize my point a little, for me, I've tried. I've searched my brain. I've searched my. I don't. Cannot actually fathom out any positive impact, because if you are talking about positive impact, you have to look at the larger society, not just I mean, a
Right,
small set of people that benefit from the churches, maybe even to afford the universities and other benefit they get from the church. I'm looking at the larger society, the larger Nigeria, populace.
awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, thanks for that, Adonis. Right? Yeah, you're right. The region that came in from olden days per se.
yeah,
It seems that a lot of people are taking bits from it, and then they forget
yeah,
the key value. I'll go to Mr. Agbaje.
yeah,
Just so we can have a different perspective as well. We're struggling to unlock the value that religion brings to the educational system in Nigeria, not spirituality, because obviously we know that's a personal thing, but religion, be it structured or unstructured, be it whatever kind of, it doesn't necessarily have to be Christianity or Islam, just religion per se, I don't know, Chris, if you can unlock some kind of value that you think religion can bring, or the pros of having it at all, considering some countries don't practice religion, some have completely gotten rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, good evening all. Hi, my name is Chris. First and foremost, I would want to say that I think the ecosystem in which we live in, that lack of sincerity of purpose, unfortunately, has been the foundation for a couple of decades now. We've seen religious influences actually diminish in terms of the positivity that it is meant to bring to human beings, no matter your faith within Nigeria. I think in the past, it started out on a good note, like the previous speakers have said. And the impact then was to bring some form of education, enlightenment, a value system of the morals, of digging basically into our humanity of how we should treat one another. And that was meant to enhance our education, all right? And for whatever your faith was, it was a vehicle for you to understand the importance of education and how we treat one another. What we've seen over the past decades has just been this deterioration of a value system where education is basically not what you learn in the four corners of a school, but education is now something entirely different, which is just trying to get a piece of paper to show your certification, as opposed to, the values. What are the values as to the rights and wrongs of how people should be treated? What are your values as to what you're supposed to do? Okay, the things that you learn and to your environment and so on and so forth, whether be it workforce or whoever it is you're teaching. I think religion has done more harm in the past maybe 3 decades or more in the Nigerian space. And I think that we have to go back and have serious discussions, because it has a strong grip on the people, whatever divide you're in. It doesn't matter what you believe in. I think that people use that as a yardstick or a lightning rod as to how they, go out of their homes and to the things that they do. I'll give a classic example. Leaving for work years and years ago from Surulere, my office is on the island, and this was like 6:30 in the morning, and I saw a large crowd of people coming out of a particular building. It's a church, not that because it's meant to be I'm just using that because of what I experienced personally. And what I saw was, people they were coming out of this building with plastic water bottles at 7 in the morning. It was a Monday morning, I remember quite vividly. And what struck me was that, okay, it's a bit strange because it's a Monday morning and I'm on my way to work.
Right.
And so just a large congregation of people were coming out of, obviously, like a church, and they had gone for maybe a vigil. And there's a large workforce of, I'm not talking about old people, I'm talking about, average, let's say aged people, young people. And here they were on a Monday morning, and they were obviously, they all had like this, they all had clear plastic bottles. And what struck me then was, okay, so I think maybe they're back from a vigil or something, but this host of people should be at work or they should be doing something. It's a Monday.
Right.
This is the kind of things that you see in different places, in different areas. It doesn't matter the kind of faith you're in. It is the kind of grip and influence that so-called religious leaders and so on have on the body of people, that we have in Nigeria. And for me, I find that to be quite sad, because here we are talking about over 65% of the Nigerian population being youths and being very, very viable workforce, on needing education, needing infrastructure, needing healthcare. But somehow I would say that on the negative side of things, because I don't see the positives so far.
Okay.
I just see that the religious leaders have somehow been able to influence this large body of people not to believe in the good of things working out, and having values, right? In that, instead, I see that it is to have this blind faith in that, somehow without working, that overnight some success is going to happen to you. So we have that. It's a big problem that I would like to see.
As you can imagine, we want to go through it because this is a very sensitive issue, and I would like everybody, I appreciate the honesty from everybody. So it's key that we unlock that value from everyone, honestly. You've said, obviously, you're struggling to find the value. A lot of people, Abel said the same, we hinted, but I'm sure most of you know my take on that. We want to see if they are actually pros. I'll go to Mr. Falai, and then I'll go to Mr. Obayabana, right? Just to say, if there is a way we can unlock some value that religion brings to the educational system in Nigeria, because if it doesn't, that means we're sitting on a landmine. So if there is one, Ani, if you want to help us with that, as you can imagine, Chris has highlighted his concerns. Waking up in the morning, driving to work, there's thousands of people coming out of the building, and they're supposed to be at work, all for religious purpose, which is okay. But hey, look, the workforce is going. So I don't know if you have any pros that we can find from being so religious at this point in time. And then we'll go to Mr. Bayabana.
Good evening, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be able to share my opinion. When we talk about religion and if there are any pros in Nigeria of today, I want to believe that there are pros to religion in Nigeria, or the value of religion in the education system in Nigeria. That's what. And what are the values? To get the values, we have to return to, or we have to understand what brought religion to Nigeria and why education was a vehicle that was used by the British in pushing religion in Nigeria.
Are you talking specifically about Christianity now?
Yes.
We want to
yes, I'm talking about Christianity. And even after Christianity, the Islamic religion, every like the two foreign religions in Nigeria, because we already had our own traditional religions. And we had, I mean, when we talk about education, let us define it. Education doesn't start from the school. Education starts from the society. A child growing up in the house who never went to school at the end of the day will start a business in Nigeria and will know, you give that child 5 naira instead of 10 naira, she knows exactly what to do in giving you the change. She never studied maths in school. That's some kind of education. Education you can learn from anywhere. But the Western or Islamic or whatever religion that was brought into Nigeria was brought into Nigeria as a way to control the people. Somebody posted that it was used to demonize our own culture, blah, blah, blah. Yes, we all read Things Fall Apart. We all read, what's the other, The Arrow of God, No Longer at Ease. Those 3 books chronicled religion and education in Nigeria. And as much as Chinua Achebe enumerated and showed the bad part of it, it also, in those books, taught us the value of education that we could take from religion that was brought into Africa. And what are the values? We already have those values in us from our traditional religion. Thou shalt not steal in the Bible. The Yorubas will say, Entoba Jali, or something like that. There are so many adages and proverbs in our culture that already teaches us all those values, but they were not codified. Western and Islamic religion in education codified those things in written forms. So those are the values that education brought to us. And those are the values that religion brought to us. So now, what are the values that we have today? The values that can be impacted today starts from the moral side of religion, whether it's the Islamic religion, whether it's the traditional religion, whether it's the Christianity. Those values are still there. But the fact that we have lost those things, there used to be a time where they taught civics in Nigerian schools. Civics started from schools, from religion. The tax that you and I pay today was the tax that we pay here in the West, that Nigerians are complaining that they're asking them to pay tax. Those tax are the tithes in the Bible. The British codified it and turned it into tax because they know that if they continue using it, because the church is the head of the government, they turned tithe into tax, so we're all paying it. I don't have to go to church and pay my tithe anymore because I'm paying 40% tax. The same thing in Africa or in Nigeria in particular. All those things are already there. Those values are there. But we lost those things because, like every other person has talked about, the commercialization of religion. However, those values are still there. All we have to do now, and I mean, we can't denigrate even the Pentecostals that they are today. There are some of them that are still doing great work in the area of adding value to their followers. There are quite a few of them. They're more like business and motivation speakers,
right?
Rather than preachers.
Okay.
There are quite a few of them. I mean, especially those of them that are based in the Lekki axis. They are particularly vast in giving business ideas and everything, and they help their people. So there are values to be heard from religion in education today.
Nee, you said when you started, I was quite impressed because I was hoping, or rather, I was glad that we can start unlocking these values. But to be fair, it all kicked off with us saying we've got to go back. We've got to go back to certain things. We've got to go back to identify, where we've gotten it wrong, But we're still struggling to unlock the values. See, we identify there are values, but they seem to be misplaced, Rotimi joined us and he has put a comment on the thing saying one of our challenges we have is as a nation is the belief that Western and formal education can do nothing without the indigenous knowledge, beliefs and values within the curriculum. Obviously, the result being evident now. Rotimi, do you want to expand on that and align with Nee? Or, if you were here when we said, hey, look, as Sandra said, we need to go back, So I don't know what your take is on. Sorry for the sake of time. So if you don't mind, give us your nuggets from a value-driven point of view so we can all align with that, because it's a subject that is really, really, it's setting the nation on a different path. There's a need for concern, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. My greetings to everyone. I can't switch on the camera now because I'm without lights, and my generator is having a problem. So I'll just contribute straight up.
It could be spiritual. Fair enough.
Now, I will first start with the language.
Okay.
You see, before you begin to talk about value system and the tradition, there's a way you have to communicate that value system into the child or into an individual. And the language speaks to the heart. Now, when religion came from Europe, they came with their own value system and wanted to, they actually imposed that their value system on us, which in turn changed our orientation. I know I don't want to say Christianity but yeah, Christianity, yes. Now, as a Yoruba man, when I was growing up, there was an oral poem that we used to recite, which was about Murasishe Oremi, Shelafin Dengi Gaba Wareni Fenti Biolelari. Now that teaches you that you have to work in order to earn a living. And it's imbibed in your heart and you cannot deviate from it. But now in schools, you're told that your native tongue is vernacular. So you can't even speak your native tongue in school. So, and you're now taught Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a grade 4. And you see, it's for you to be in service to the West, and not particularly because they want you to be useful to yourself. Okay. So we have to go back. When I say we have to go back,
right,
we have to make indigenous language okay and not demean it. That's one way. And that when we're talking of education, we don't just talk of education as in the formal sense of it alone.
Right.
Education is so broad. So we have to learn that the indigenous knowledge system works. They were there, they were working for us, and that was why when they came into our continent, they found riches, they found wealth. It was through the indigenous knowledge that we're able to create that. Why is it now that we now have a formal education, we are unable to stand on our own? Why? So we have to ask that question. It cuts across all: crafts, medicine, technology. If we go back to where if we understand what indigenous knowledge is, we will be able to meet up, we'll be able to catch up and even surpass.
Okay.
Those in the Far East are able to do it. We can also do it, but we have to appreciate our indigenous knowledge.
Okay,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Awesome, Rotimi. That's fantastic. I don't know, but when you say we have to go back to indigenous language, are you talking history or specific languages? I'm not sure. Maybe who wants to pick it up from there is fine in terms of clarity. I know before we have a student of history. Your hands is up, but fair enough. If you want to, run with that, it's great. But I'm trying to understand going back, because we've highlighted we have a problem. When we say go back, are we going back to history, or going back to a language, or going back to what we were practicing before, or going back to values that we had before? Guys, just to flag timing. So obviously we had 2 topics.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Just quick one. When Rotimi said going back to the languages, I think he said it all. We're not going. When I say going back, it's not like we want to start reinventing the wheel. I believe there's a school in somewhere in the Southwest where there's a king that started that school, a king of one of the Southwest villages or towns in Nigeria that started school. And that school, they're being taught in Yoruba. English, maths, chemistry, everything is taught in Yoruba. That school is recording 98 to 100% pass in WAEC.
Okay, but
even in English,
a problem though, doesn't it? Because we have about 500 languages in Nigeria.
Yes.
If we say go back, for instance, where I'm from, is a tiny village. right? Where my mom is from is a tiny village. So where are we going to go back to? You know, do we not generalize that language? But we are looking to unlock the specific value that religion has on our educational system in Nigeria. Does it
That
have
specific
any at
value,
all? Or does
the
it not
specific
have
value
any?
of religion, if I'm going to say it in one sentence,
Yeah.
the specific value of religion is the teaching of morals and civics.
Thank you. Okay, if it's all right, we can do a round robin on this one because we do have another topic to highlight on. Don't forget that this whole thing is timeless because obviously you can come back next week, watch it, and we build on it constantly week in, week out. So what has been discussed by the time we go through it, part of it will still be highlighted next week, and then, you know, we can run away with that. Benga, if you're there, Mr. Samuel, if we can do a round robin on it and say, hey, look, from a value point of view, do you think there is value in religion presently in Nigeria right now? Right, if you have a minute on that, so we can go into a more exciting topic, I suppose.
Greetings, everyone. The topic is very interesting, but for me, I would say there is a value you can get from religion to the education in Nigeria. For example, like what Mr. Olaji said just now, that I will just speak of that capture was the moral. Yes. And an example is the vice president, who is described as an erudite, is it erudite? Is that the right pronunciation? Erudite man. Yeah. And so when we have individuals like that in post of office, because they've got the fear of God, regardless to what religion anyone subscribes to, they will have to transfer that fear to do what is needful for the fear of God and not act in a way that's, you know, nonchalant attitude. Another example as well is that we have Catholic schools in the UK. We've got people that they've graduated from Catholic school and been, even though the system for what political office or whatever office they are in, they still have to have that fear of God and they comport themselves accordingly because they've got that fear. So for me, religion is a good impact morally and is a sort of value for them to know that there's someone higher being that they need to respect, even though they're in a position of making critical decisions. So for me, I have nothing negative with religious sector.
Okay. All right. I'll go to Dakpo if you're okay. We're just doing a round robin. Fair enough. If you don't have to, if you're listening in, it's fine. But if you have a valid input, feel free to unmute yourself and have a go. If not, I'll move over to Mr. Jamide. Just say, from your point of view, value-driven conversation here. Do you think religion has a value, or is it relevant in the present-day Nigeria? Right.
Oh, I think it is. And good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Because no matter how you want to look at it, morals does come into it. For those in the UK, we look at children that are growing up and you say, oh, they have no morals. You know, they have no, you know, what's going on. But when you think about it, a lot of it stems down to not just the lack of religion within their lives. You know, so they don't have that structure to say, oh, if I do this, it's either a sin or it is wrong. And there's a reckoning at the end of the day, right? So it all blends together. When we were growing up, as everyone has said, or different people have mentioned, religion was part of our schools. Those who went to Emutan, those who went to other Catholic schools, it was all imbibed in it. It was all part of education. Yes, you can say, oh, it's from the West, it's from the West, from wherever, or from the North, being Muslim or being Christian. The fact that it's part of it adds morals to your education, adds morals to your growth. And that improves, I think, the children that are growing up and are learning and getting involved in society. For those of us that we see the lack of morals and it's a lot of the, you know, so I think religion it's a key part. I mean, we've been at it for how many years now?
Yeah.
You know, with colonization, Christianity brought into it. The Muslims came from their end, and it's been imbued into our society. Yes, we do have the occasional people that use it to grandidize themselves in whatever form, but it is part of our society, be
Right.
you Christian, Muslim, or whatever.
Okay. So I'm getting from you that it's kind of relevant, right?
It is relevant. If it's not
Okay.
relevant, I don't think a lot of us here today or in this conversation that grew up wherever we grew up
Right.
would have the same kind of structures that we have.
I'm going to go back to Sandra in a bit. Sandra, if you can quantify that for us, obviously we're doing a round robin, and I'm pretty certain we might just on this and park the job creation for next week for the sake of time. Like, I knew this was going to be a very heated topic anyway. Somebody's microphone is going off, please. There's a background noise somewhere, please. All right. So the key thing now is, for instance, religion doesn't necessarily have to align with a deity, though. I hope you guys understand that. You know, football in this country, for instance, is a religion to some people, right? It's just based on what you do constantly. But obviously, we're focusing this on the deity side of things, you know. So, Sandra, if you look at that, if you can help us in unlocking that kind of value, what about the people who have morals but not necessarily religious? There are atheists who are not religious, you know. The religious we practice in Nigeria, if it's driven by morals, if someone who's not religious and is looking at this individual who claims to be religious, but his moral bearing is off the hook, where's the alignment there? So from your point of view, is it a situation where we are misaligning or not understanding it? I know we might go back to education, but if you can give us some value from that, and then you know, we can, hey, you know, I'm going to unmute everybody because we only have about 7 minutes. I'll unmute you, but please just be civil with it. If you need to talk, unmute yourself, and then give respect to who's speaking, please. Right.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. I think for me,
sorry.
Right. That's okay. That's okay. I think for me, we're forgetting that our Creator had created all of us with a conscience. And that is our moral compass, our natural, inbred, inbuilt moral compass that we all have. So you talk about atheists having more morals probably than people of religion and all of that. Is because in them, you know, someone has designed that in them. So they know right from wrong. There's a natural thing. And where we don't align with it is where we rebel against our inner sense that's telling us that if you do what you're doing now, that's wrong. It's because we've moved away from that. We want to do our own thing because we have a free mind, you know, so you can pick and choose what you want to do. It gets really difficult then when people try and impose that on other people, which is where I see religion coming into it. Rather than practicing the right morals and the right values, we're seeing people imposing their own personal values and take on religion, if you like, on other people, and therefore skewing the way people behave, skewing the way people see things in life, and even from very young children at home that haven't been to school. Where do they learn from? You know, the right and wrong is from their parents, you know? So it doesn't have to be until you get to an education institution that you're learning all these things. You learn it from home as well. So for me, it's about being in tune with the conscience that we've all been created to have, as in being the right human being.
Right. You see, I like the angle you approached it from, that we all have this in us. And I'm a firm believer of that because I don't think anybody's born bad. I think people are taught how to be horrible. And obviously, the moral bearings we have in us, if you leave the kid, it's going to do right. If he does wrong, you correct him and knows. Mr. Rotimi, if you're there, please. there is a situation brewing where we've talked about religion and we all identified that we need to go back. Just for the sake of time, we know you haven't given us your own nuggets. It'd be nice to hear from you what you think, or rather where you think we're heading with this. You know, is religion really, really relevant, or is it valid? Or the impact it's having on our educational system, you know, is it valuable at all?
You know, not to waste too much time, I fully align with what Mr. Jimmy Day said earlier. You know, we are where we are because of the upbringing we had.
Yeah.
Essentially from school. You know, our parents sent us off to school, to church, to do communion, catechism, all of that. You know, that's where we got our moral bearings from. Sadly, yes, there's been a derailment in the way churches conduct things these days, but that is not to say that there's no value in there. I would like to rest on that.
Okay, thank you. Mohammed, are you on the call as well? I like what you did there to me, because you're saying you're leaving it open again for us to decipher, you know, but we would like to know what to take away from religion on a whole. Simply because, like we said, this is a timeless podcast. Someone might listen to it in 2 years' time and might be struggling with their spirituality or their religious bearing, and they listen to you say something and they be like, okay, that's true. Obviously, Jemide highlighted that need, that it's a very, very moral driven entity that religion is, you know, but there is a misalignment. Right? Mohammed, for instance, can you highlight to us if there is value coming from religion that we think can benefit Nigeria, and then we can kind of like look how to end it on that note.
Well, okay, Solomon, thank you. I think there is indeed value and values we can derive from religion, both religion, the main religion in Nigeria, both Christianity and Islam. It's more about practicing the correct, you know, aspect of the religion, not cherry picking. And specifically with regard to education, I would like to remind you that most of the great scientists, both here in the West and pre-Western world,
they were religious people.
People. You take Isaac Newton, he wrote more on theology than in science. You know, you take, for example, Al-Khwarizmi, even Charles Darwin. So those people never even at first differentiate what is religion or what is education. They do it all. All religion encourage knowledge, patience, kindness. Go to the text, they are all there. Take, for example, Islam, the religion where I belong to. Pre-Western world, it was Islamic scientists that did all this. Most of the universities, Western are religious. Even Oxford, Cambridge, they all started from religious institution. They were all part of the church. Take the first university in the world today, existing, Al-Qarawin in Morocco. It's a mosque. Look at Al-Azhar, is a mosque. So earlier on, I don't know, even when we drifted to this kind of thing where religion is there, maybe the scholars try to, corrupt, if I can say, or destabilize the thing. But I think if we can go back truly to the text and practice it correctly, there are a lot of things we can benefit. I would like here to say, unfortunately, coming from Nigeria and being a Muslim from the north, I am not happy with what, if you look at the likes of Boko Haram are doing, whereby they completely, like I told you, Al-Qarawin was established before Oxford and Cambridge, and Al-Azhar, and they are Muslim, they pray. Those are even earlier Muslim before Shekau and his cowards, But look at what is happening. Like, you will think it's two different algorithms we are running now. It's a name of a person, Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi. He's a Muslim. They are all scientists. So I think it's more on how we understand and practice the things that are valuable to humanity at large. And it doesn't have to be any specific religion. Most of the religion are saying the same thing. Kindness, be nice to humans. Go and look at the text. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I agree on that. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Adonis. I agree on that specifically. But you see, the key thing is, right, the religion, does it have any value in our educational system? From a moral point of view, it's understandable. Yeah, I understand the moral side of things. But when you look at education in Nigeria and how we are struggling, we cannot help but compare ourselves with other advanced countries, right, and how they practice things. If we are saying the way we practice religion is wrong, maybe that's why we're falling short, then that's a different conversation. That means we're not looking at the values or the principles within that specific religion, but look at our educational system and align it with religion and say, okay, what is the value that religion is bringing into the educational system? Not just on the moral side of you. So I don't know if that was where you were leaning to, yeah, feel free to pick it up. Because if you go back to what Abel was saying before, you come out of the church, you see people on the ground, you see beggars and all that. An educated person will know that there's something missing there. You know, the fact that we can't see that as wrong, that means the religion itself is not really feeding into the education that is supposed to be embedded in the people.
Yeah, thank you. You took the word out of my mouth a little bit. Like what Mohammed, I just want to add to what the last speaker just said, Mohammed. It's like, due respect to some other speakers, yeah, like they are missing the point. Nobody is saying religion is not relevant or in terms of moral. We are looking at religion as it were then and as it is now. You know, what we are trying to say that it has been seriously bastardized. You know, it has derailed from the initial, traditions. Because as you said, in the colonial times, religions played a lot of positive, has a very positive impact on education. You know, most of the schools that were set up then were mostly 90% were set up by religious bodies. You know, we all know that in 18, the oldest school in Nigeria, CMS in Lagos, in Onisha, CKC Onisha, they were all missionary schools, and they were free. They taught morals, and they were not commercialized. You know what we are saying now, I think most people don't understand that it has been commercialized. It doesn't have any value at all now. To me, that's my perspective, because it's like cash and carry, you know, and it's not everybody that can afford. Before it was for everybody, it was free, you know, it was not for the richest people, it was not for the elite, you know. So when you don't have, when something is not in any society, when it's only the elite that can capture a particular what do you call it, can enjoy from I don't know the word to use anyway, but go where I'm coming from, you know. So what I'm trying to say that we want to differ from some speaker here that said that education, religion has added some moral to our society in terms of, and let me quickly say, they're talking about children. Children in Nigeria, most people like children here, I disagree. There's difference between timidity and being disciplined. Most Nigerian children are timid. That's the truth. I grew up in Nigeria. I was about 25 years before I came abroad. You know, I know the way my children can boldly stand up for their rights. You know, speak to adults, and the way we that grew up in Nigeria, the way we kind of panic, don't have the confidence. You know, we don't have that. Most of us don't have that self-confidence to interact with adults or people that are kind of above us, you know. So that of saying children in Nigeria are more disciplined than children
Harry,
here,
I'm on my way.
I
Don't
don't
worry.
totally
I'm on my
agree
way.
with
I'll
that.
call you when I get out there.
You know, because why is it that most of these people in Nigeria want to take their children here to study? You know, if actually that's how we have to look at it. You know, most people want to bring their children here to study. So if they are disciplined, why would they want to take their children here to study? You know. So
I agree with you on that note. Because if you look at if we base religion based on moral values, right, then you have to look at countries that don't observe religion per se and are getting it right. Then it goes back to how certain things are practiced, right? Go back to David again. David, you're a historical guy. I'm sorry, you are historical. You're not old. You're a student of history, right? You're a student of history. When we went back initially, when we started, you mentioned something that's really, really relevant. You know, the maybe before when the way we were doing things, right? Our own culture, maybe we failed to document things. But at what point do you think we missed out on highlighting the values of any kind of religion we're practicing and taking those values in educating, using those values to educate and enlighten ourselves? Where do you think we're getting it wrong? And at what point, you know? Not to bash any pastors or preachers or imams, but there must be a situation where we're missing out on siphoning the values from religion and embedding that or using that to push our educational system forward. If we cannot do that, then we might have a problem. I don't know what your take is on.
Well, if we use Nigeria as a case study,
yeah, please.
I won't call it going wrong. I'll call it the degeneration. It came with the Pentecostals. It came with the money-driven values rather than impacting on the congregation. It came with, you must donate your 10% tithe. That's where it started. That's where it started to go wrong.
Right.
Like I said earlier, you do have some religious bodies impacting on the polity. They have universities, they have colleges, but going back to the point, those universities are so expensive, it does not really reach the masses. Now, if we're saying we want to impact on the masses, then surely they have to be impacted too through the wealth of the church. You know, the church can't keep amassing wealth and not distributing it to the masses. Everything we're doing is to try and highlight and promote the generation next. That we have, what's the percentage of the youth really in Nigeria between the ages of 19 and 35? We have 80 million, as I said last week in our conversation. Now, these people need moral guidance. These people need the support of the church, and not the church needing the support of the people. That's where we got it wrong, when it started to go value for cash rather than value for morality. Wow. My take.
Well, is that not more of an economic issue? Because, you know, when I rounded up when we first started and I said religion has occupied that lacuna vacated by good governance. So that's what's led to all this. I attended the Pentecostal church as a kid. We never heard anything about money, and you just went to church and you went back home. And that was it. It's when the economic downturn happened, religion became where people went to find solace. I think that's what's happened, and we've taken it too far now. Poverty, there's no doubt there's poverty in the land. It's a contributory factor to all this.
I agree. I think that's where I was coming from as well, really, to be honest, because I think there was that gap there, and people saw, and, you know, most pastors or whoever it was, you know, saw that people needed salvation. So they thought, yeah, we'll bring them into the church. But rather than, you know, using their congregation or providing for them in some way, you know, I mean, I don't think no government in isolation can provide an education system that benefits the whole of the masses. So I think, you know, religion can fill that gap. Religion, I mean, you know, we only have to look to the Middle East. You know, a lot of the schools and universities around there, they're all affordable. Most of them are funded by religious organizations in these countries. Look at the Jewish people here in London. You know, most of the schools are funded by the synagogues and all that stuff, and they're affordable for the kids to go to. So there is that thing that religion can fill in that gap, but, you know, we have to have the right people in place, and I think that's sorely missing in Nigeria as a whole.
Is it the right people or the right practice? I mean, anybody's free to help us out here. Is it the right people or the right practice? Mohammed hinted at something which I think is right, you know. If we practice it right, we get it right. But I mean, there is no right religion per se, because everybody has his own, you know,
sure,
look at spirituality. But when it comes to looking at the educational value that a religion brings, a certain religion brings, there must be something in there that says we're either getting it wrong from the people dishing it out, or we're not practicing it right. I'm a Christian, for instance, or I identify as a Christian.
I'll quickly, just quickly want to jump in.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've, as a people, relied recently more on the messenger than the message. We are all of various beliefs, and we've all existed way before the prominent religious beliefs of Christianity and Islam. There was traditional practices in the space that we call Nigeria now, where we had elders, we had structure, we had all of that, you know, things that worked. You had age groups, and they had certain beliefs as well. However, having said that, I think it's important that we kind of find our way back to the messages that religion. I think Ms. Sandra Popola, you know, put something about moral compass, and that struck a chord with me because that is supposed to be the balance. It's supposed to be what we're meant to use going forward for whatever value system that we're meant to believe in. And I think that the messengers are mostly the problem of any religion nowadays. I think they are watching. I think that their conscience are seared. I think that the right messages are not being sent out, or the orientation for individuals, youths, elder ones, middle age and all. I believe that all of that have been swept aside. And as David mentioned here, you know, cash for you know. But having said that, we could thread back on the path of this is what we are about. Why don't we start listening to the messages? The messages are all the same. The message of humanity, being kind to one another, knowing what to do. The messages are all the same. It doesn't matter your belief. So I think we should tread towards that. Look at China. Whether the Western world brought something to China, they were going to take what they believed was the best that was good for them and not swallow everything hook, line, and sinker and use it to fortify whatever they were about and be able to march forward. I believe that a lot of other countries have been able to use that model of, okay, I mean, you've brought in education and this is what you taught us. Okay, what did we have in the past? What do we have right now? Okay, can we inculcate it? Whether we're speaking our languages, history is very important. We shouldn't forget who we are, what we are about, and then use that as a vehicle, right? To be able to move this conversation forward. Because we have to hold, just 1 more minute. We have to hold the messengers accountable now. We have to, because whatever it is they say, our people largely believe that. It erodes whatever educational value system that could be in place. So it's very important that we begin to have these engaging conversations and not cower in fear, but begin to make people to understand that, look, we need to know what's right is right and wrong is wrong.
Chris, excellent. But you know what? We're definitely going to have another session around religion and spirituality and all that, because as you can see from here, it's a topic that is really key. You know, but the truth of the matter is, the value it has in education is what we're really trying to unlock. Does it bring any value to our educational system? You mentioned China. Right, anybody's free to help me out here. Mr. Rotimi, I'd like your input on that.
I would like to say something, but please, quickly.
1 minute. If you mention China, for instance, right? China, they took all kinds of religion and whatever, but they kind of educated themselves on a level and took what they wanted from that, harnessed it. But look at them now; they don't really practice any kind of religion. But hey, look, when it comes to technology, anything in your house right now, 90% is probably made in China. Nigeria is still not doing that, right? So that's where we're finding this problem, right? Is religion as a whole, is it giving us any value from an educational point of view? So between Bawa and Rotimi, if you guys want to dish it out, we barely have 15 minutes now, so let's just lock it out to have a...
I defer to Bawa.
Well, okay, I just wanted to say, is it relevant right now? No, because they're not doing what we all grew up with, what religion was doing in regards to education. We've all said it here now. A lot of the schools and things like that, the universities were owned by religion, or were built by religious entities. So at the moment we have churches, mosques. What they do is they rather have a different branch somewhere else instead of actually building a school for the children in the community that they are. It is what the Catholic churches used to do. Those of you that grew up in Benin, you went to Emotan. there was St. Margaret. That's what churches were doing. They educated the people, and not just the people, but the children. So you're talking about nursery and primary. And if you believe that you are capable, because the money they make, don't forget, they don't get taxed in any way here in the UK or there in Nigeria. So every money that comes in by tithes, your 10%, you see it. Immediately they built a church that's bigger than what was there how many months ago? Instead of actually putting that money into the community by them building schools. If every religious entity was actually building schools, education would be cheaper because everybody's competing, and that's how it was then. You had the Catholic Church within Benin City had so many schools, education would be cheaper. And then the quality of education would also be better because yes. So if you ask now, are they right now? No. Are they able to? Yes. So when somebody says, we now need to hold their messengers accountable because the messengers are no longer doing what they are meant to be doing.
Excellent. Excellent.
They say and they come out and they tell you all the different things. You come into church, you pray, you drop your money, believing that that money you're putting down will bless them. They don't see it. Instead, you see that same man that you should have asking to pray for you to pray to God. He's driving the best cars and you're walking on the streets.
That is not yes. So
yeah. So instead of putting that in, I'm saying this. At the moment, they're not doing what they're meant to be doing.
So it's not relevant. It's not relevant to our educational system.
Well, if they have the money, if they can all change and move in that direction, it will be relevant. But at the moment, they don't.
So that's the solution, sort of. Okay.
That's pretty much it. So they now have to, someone says, hold the messengers accountable. And that is where we hold them accountable.
Thank you.
What have you done in the community? How many children have you trained?
To be honest, some of them have, but it's the value of that training that we question.
No, but you say some of them.
No. Let's be factual about it, right? Even on the chat there, you can see there's some religious institutions do build schools and universities. We know that, But what you need to question now is what are they educating these children now? Because they've been doing this for years, but yet you still look at our educational level, it's still well below. You interact with these people, you don't get any value. They say, I go to a Christian school. So you know more about the Bible than you know about progress. So I mean, over to me, if you want to chip on that as well, in terms of, is there any value religion is giving us right now in terms of educating the Nigerian youth?
Yes.
There's an age group that is missing. David highlighted it, 18 to about 26. That's about 50, 60 million Nigerians, right? What's the value religion is giving to them from an educational point of view?
Thank you very much. I would just like to speak on a very personal note here. Like I typed out in the chat, where my church is situated is a village, composed mainly of internally displaced persons. We established a school there inside of the church. We had to pay, you won't believe it, we had to pay 1,500 naira per term.
Wow.
Just so children can get a good education. It's happening. It's happening. It's not happening on the scale we would like. Yeah, but it's happening. So what we need to do is encourage such places to thrive. Simple.
Please, can you just put the that's what if you put the information on the chat.
Yeah, if you don't mind,
people here can definitely impact on it immediately. This is part of what we are really.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mr. Rotimi. I think you kind of like wrap it up for us. You wrapped it up for us really cool because we were struggling to find or unlock that particular value. What you highlighted here, if there's a school in Nigeria giving kids a proper education at that cost, 1,500, I think they should be highlighted. I think they should be praised. I think they should be amplified, regardless whether it's a church or a mosque or a shrine doing it. As long as they're giving that value to that kid, that educational value, and you can measure it or you can see it, then we know there's some kind of change happening. Holding the messengers accountable is ideal because we kind of have a situation where, we go to church and they pray and they pray and they pray and someone's praying for infused knowledge. It doesn't work that way. you know? So on that note, guys, if you want to do a round robin, it's fine. But, you know, I think we've covered enough to say religion doesn't really have a value in our educational system, but it can help in driving it forward if the right people are running it. Am I right with that? If that's okay, you know?
Yep.
It's a shame we couldn't talk about the next topic, which is supposed to be creating jobs from the diaspora, because I really had a presentation ready, but I'll definitely, let's just put that for next week, because it's really key as well. And then we'll align it with what we've talked about here from religion and education. Yeah?
Sure.
It's been an hour and a half already, so...
Sounds good.
All right. You know?
See you all next week.
Say thank you very much for all your time.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thanks.